if I opened up my Morpheus client and I said, hey, I want to stake some ETH. Like, I'm not technical. I don't know how to do that. Help me stake. Cool. It understands the intent. It can match it to the smart contract. Let's say Lido, that it knows has the most transactions and the most volume, right? And say, okay, send it all out. How many ETH do you want to stake? Confirm on your MetaMask, and you're done. That's where we have to get as an industry, as an ecosystem, when it comes to usability. You've got a personal AI connected to your data that is, going after your goals. It's on your stuff, and you're authorizing it with your wallet, right? And it's taking actions on your behalf. That's, I think, the framework that we really want, right?
Hey everyone, welcome to the Edge Podcast. I'm DeFi Dad here with Nomadic from 4RC. Today's show spotlights Morpheus, the permissionless and open source peer-to-peer network for generative AI. AI has become an increasingly present part of our lives. The impact of personal AIs, known as smart agents, has only just begun. With smart agents, imagine the average user will be able to talk in normal language and have the AI understand the question and then take action based on their approval. In this episode, we'll talk with Web3 and decentralization advocate David Johnston about why we need decentralized open source AI, how it blends well with crypto, and why Morpheus is building open source smart agents to catalyze a moment for crypto similar to what Google's search engine did for the early internet. But before we do, just a quick word from our sponsors who make the Edge podcast possible. Introducing RSWETH by SWELL Network, a native liquid restaking token that gives you access to the EigenLayer ecosystem. Earn pearls, points, and future restaking rewards without locking your liquidity. And enjoy countless DeFi integrations for earning easy passive yield. Learn more at swellnetwork.io.
Introducing the MANTLE Liquid Staking Protocol, MANTLE LSP, a permissionless, non-custodial ETH liquid staking protocol deployed on Ethereum L1 and governed by MANTLE. With MANTLE LSP, users can stake ETH to instantly receive METH, earn yield and accumulate rewards the longer you stake. METH is the value accumulating receipt token that will give you access to expanded yield opportunities. Stake and watch your yield grow with MANTLE LSP.
For most of us, our crypto journey started with MetaMask, and now with MetaMask Portfolio, we can do so much more. MetaMask Portfolio puts you in control. Use the dashboard to see all your assets and balances across your wallets in one place. The buy feature allows us to buy crypto assets effortlessly with fiat options such as PayPal or credit card. The swap feature allows us to swap any tokens anytime by finding a selection of available rates. The bridge feature allows us to bridge between networks including Ethereum, L1s, and L2s based on the best price and fastest delivery time. And with the stake feature, anyone in a few clicks can stake ETH and earn rewards. Do more in Web3 your way with a safe, simple, and convenient tool that's all in one place. Track and manage your Web3 everything at metamask.io/portfolio. Mike, before we get back to the show, can you explain what is liquid restaking?
Everybody at this point is familiar with liquid staking. It lets you take your staked ETH, mint a liquid staking token, and then use that token in DeFi. Well, the hottest thing in staking right now is restaking. It's the ability to reuse your staked ETH to provide Ethereum's trust layer to other services that want to benefit from it. Services like data availability layers, Oracle networks, other blockchains, and beyond. The benefit of restaking is that you get to earn additional staking rewards on top of your normal staking rewards. Well, currently, if you want to restake your ETH, your only option is to lock up your ETH. The reason that's a problem is because you can't use your restaked ETH in DeFi. We are launching ETH, the ETHER.FI liquid restaking token, because with liquid restaking, users get the benefit of staking rewards, restaking rewards, and they get to collect loyalty points for ETHER.FI and EigenLayer through this token. So it's the easiest way to get exposure to two up-and-coming early protocols, and on top of that, get all the benefits of staking and restaking.
To learn more about ETH liquid staking and liquid restaking, go to ETHER.FI.
It all started so simply with CryptoKitties and Maker on Ethereum, but quickly became complex with more applications and many chains. Today, everyone agrees, UX issues are the biggest blocker standing in the way of crypto adoption. Introducing AVOCADO. Multi-chain UX redesigned from the ground up. The first wallet to abstract networks, accounts, and gas. One gas tank to pay transaction fees on all chains in USDC. And native access to INSTADAPP's powerful, custom DeFi strategies. AVOCADO, one wallet to rule all chains.
All right, let's introduce David Johnston, an open source contributor to Morpheus. David, welcome to the Edge podcast. How are you doing?
Hey guys, it's great to be here.
We're going to talk today all about what is decentralized AI, why do we need it, how that fits into the mission and really the end products that are being created by Morpheus. I'd love to just start with your background. You have a lot to share. I mean, you've spoken at like 100+ conferences. I'd love for you to also share a bit about what you're doing right now outside the country and where you're speaking and why you're speaking there.
Sure. No, that's great. So yeah, I'm just outside Davos right now. I brought the family, they're playing in the snow, and I get to attend the anti-WEF events during the evening, which is a lot of fun, like talking about open source and crypto. We're like the barbarians at the gate, right? We're like just outside the Citadel, hosting stuff at like the Filecoin Sanctuary. And it's really cool. It's like, there's Tim Berners-Lee, right? And there's, the head founder of Wikipedia and the Signal people and, everybody calling for open source and freedom, like, right, sort of just the opposite of what they're discussing inside the World Economic Forum. Yeah, it's been fun. I've been in crypto a long time. Got into Bitcoin in 2012 and spoke at the first Bitcoin conference back in May of 13 that the Bitcoin Foundation put on. And, I've just been trying to help build as much freedom tech as I possibly can the last 12 years. I'm sort of like a freedom maximalist. And so, Bitcoin is great. Ethereum is great. They all have different network effects. And so I've never gotten too tribal. It's like, what tool can I use to achieve the next level of freedom, right? So Bitcoin gave us decentralized money. Ethereum gave us smart contracts. I wrote the paper on decentralized applications back in October of 13. And I was like, hey guys, let's take that awesome stuff about Bitcoin, peer-to-peer, blockchain backend, all open source and token, and use that model for other projects, right? And so that really kind of caught on. Like people started building dApps, talking about dApps, and Ethereum framed themselves as a platform for dApps and smart contracts. And so, yeah, that's been basically my last 10 years is helping with each protocol I could to make it go further up the stack, right? A lot of people know the phrase, everything that can be decentralized will be decentralized. I jokingly put that forth as Johnston's law in 2014, and like that got caught on. And it's like, I just wanted to say, like, guys, this is inevitable. We're on the right side of history. Like, this is just keep building as we make these layers closer and closer to the user, right? And I think that's how we win over time, right? Is I do not put my faith in politics or the state. I put my faith in people voluntarily working together using these systems. So yeah, it's been an awesome time. And, I saw what was going on in AI last year, and I started writing some papers, first about the idea of smart agents, right? How do we connect the AI and smart contracts? And so I wrote some algorithms called Smart Contract Rank there. Like, how do we teach large language models about Web3 and smart contracts so they're not spouting some, random thing they read on the internet, but rather like have a real view of what are the most used, applications and the safest things that they could use in non-custodial. And so, yeah, a community started forming around that. And then I think it was September 2nd, some anonymous developers proposed this Morpheus paper, and they sent it to a bunch of people in the smart agent community. And they're like, hey, this is great, but most people don't have the hardware, right? They need some way to call, inference. Like they might not have a GPU themselves. So it's like, how do I call somebody else that wants to provide that compute? And we need a network. We need a network for these smart agents, right? And that's what they proposed about Morpheus. And I really liked the paper. It was like all fair launch, no company, totally open source. And I happened to run into Erik Voorhees just a week later on September 9th when we were at Permissionless, right? And he gave that awesome speech in Austin about like why we're here for crypto. I'm sure you guys saw that online. And I sat down with him and I was like, I think this decentralized AI stuff's really important. And I was starting to see like regulatory proposals to like concentrate all the AI power in just like a couple of big companies. And I was like, they're going to need all the Web3 rails we spent the last 10 years building. And he was like, yeah, this is what we got to have next, right? And so a community started forming around this paper, but we didn't know how quickly the regulatory stuff was going to come. Like it was only a month later at the end of October that the executive order got signed. And man, like it's draconian. Like you're talking limits on, the size of models, the amount of compute you're allowed to do. If you enjoy KYC for your money, welcome to KYC for your data, because they're going to block runners from using US compute to train AIs. To do that, they're going to have to KYC everybody using the data center, right? And so like, all of these regulations are focused on companies. And so it's like, wow, we have a short window here to build out the whole decentralized AI tech stack. And we got to do this now, like, because we might not have the ability to do it later. I mean, one of the craziest things is in July, the Commerce Department will determine if open source weights constitute dual use weapons. And thus it'll make it illegal for US people to release open source models. So like, man, this is something that, shot up to like the top of my like time I want to spend and, open source contributions I want to make. And so, yeah, that's kind of what's been driving, the urgency. And so within a month, developers have built, first implementation. So it's live right now. You can go to mor.org, which is the website Erik put up for the community, and download a full open source AI on your computer. Totally, not connected to Microsoft or Google. It's not reporting back data. You don't even need the internet connection. Once you have it on your computer, you can just run it locally, and it's your data connected to on your computer. It's your personal data, right? And I think that's like sort of the big thing, the big model that's really excited people. But yeah, I mean, that led to like this whole series of events, like you said, the last couple of months, where then it was like, okay, we got to let people know what's going on. So we went out to San Francisco and we held a party basically to protest the regulatory capture that's going on. And Erik put up a website, Keep AI Open, right? And we, with 24 hours, we invited people, 700 people showed up to protest this regulatory capture, like the top AI people in the space. A bunch of the protocols were there, Erik and Grimes and Jade. It was nuts, right? It was a wild party to see that reaction. They're like, okay, we got to dive in. So we ended up holding the Decentralized AI Summit in Austin back in December. Within 5 days of organizing it, we had 200 of the top people in the world fly from Europe and Asia, all over the US, to come and like, okay, how do we build this stack, right? And so, yeah, it's been a wild 2 months.
David, when we were talking earlier, you told a story that really resonated with me, and something just due to your background and how long you've been in the space, was just recalling that we've seen all this before. We've seen this play out before with cryptography and math. Can you just like maybe reiterate that story for our audience and our listeners? Because I mean, history rhymes, and again, we're just seeing this all again, aren't we?
Yeah, no, it really reminds me of the crypto wars of the 1990s. So in 1991, there was a bill proposed to ban encryption for emails, right? Well, this encryption is privacy. This can't be allowed for the common man, right? And so that bill inspired Phil Zimmermann to release PGP, right? Pretty good privacy, right? It's a common encryption standard. It sort of made this bill impossible to enforce. Once he open sourced that, the genie was out of the bottle, right? But the government still tried to enforce, these restrictions. And so he famously printed the algorithm on a t-shirt, walked across the border and said, please arrest me. I'm breaking the law because you couldn't disclose this magical math to foreign people. He was arrested, and of course he won in the courts in 1995, right? Because for some reason the judges were unwilling to ban math and books and t-shirts and language, right? So the First Amendment held up in the US as sort of a defense against this overreach on the government side. But it wasn't until 1999 that those restrictions were formally rescinded when Google and Microsoft started lobbying, yeah, for commercial software, I guess we do need encryption and privacy, right? So it was basically a decade where we had to have that fight. And so in a lot of ways, I think the community is sort of Zimmermaning the situation again, right? Pulling a Zimmerman where, we're just going to release as much open source and decentralized tech as we can before these restrictions go into effect so people can do the compute anywhere, right? They can code this anywhere. They can, live anywhere. And most of the restrictions are targeted at data centers and they're targeted at companies, right? It's not the individual, right? So if you're using permissionless open source, you're sort of outside of that framework that they're trying to set up. So yeah, I mean, that sort of gives you a lot of urgency. And we didn't even talk about the next month in December, the EU mirrored this legislation in the EU AI Act, right? And a lot of the same restrictions have been implemented there. And so far, only the UK has clearly come out and said, no, we're not going to regulate open source and fundamental, large language models, right? So that's like a small win. There are a lot of AI people in London, so we may well see an exodus from San Francisco to London. Hopefully Switzerland will come out in favor of open source. We'll see which jurisdictions this year decide to be pro AI, right? Just like we had in Web3, right? Where the bit license came down in 2014, basically kicked most of the crypto companies out of the US, and people went to Switzerland and people went to Singapore. Those ended up being the hubs and serving most of the foundations, most of the protocols.
David, with all of that history and context in mind, I'm wondering if we could start to talk about, what is the importance of decentralized open source AI? Why do we need open source AI?
There's this big question in the AI ecosystem the last couple of years. How do we achieve, quote unquote, alignment, right, between humans and AI? And honestly, I've come to the conclusion that this group alignment is fundamentally impossible. It's not going to happen. What we can achieve is individual alignment, right? You've got a personal AI connected to your data that is, going after your goals. It's on your side. You're authorizing it with your wallet, right? And it's taking actions on your behalf. That's, I think, the framework that we really want, right? To imagine that you and your personal preferences are going to be aligned with OpenAI or some government that you live under, right? Because they're adding these quote unquote safety committees, which are largely like, oh, we don't like certain subjects and we don't like certain answers. Could you make the machine not respond to that one, right? You can imagine what those are in China, but it's the same in the US, right? And so you've actually noticed this. A lot of the, ChatGPT 4 has gotten worse the last few months. People are starting to complain, it's gotten so, nanny type approach. It half the time it won't even give you an answer, or it's so qualified as to be useless, right? So true decentralized AI is built around the individual. And what better to use than Web3 wallets, right? There are 400 million people with a Web3 wallet. They've got a private and public key. They can prove cryptographically their intent, right? That's the funny thing. I was talking with Erik Voorhees in Austin at Permissionless, and he pointed out to me, he's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. The only thing even a super smart AI could never create is a private key, right? It's not going to be able to reverse engineer the physics or the thermodynamics involved in creating strong cryptography, right? So we have the laws of physics on our side. If you were actually concerned about strong AI, you should want people using encryption to prove what they said and prove what they intended, right? And so that whole concept is what I was writing about in smart agents, right? And describing this term, a smart agent is your personal agent connecting to smart contracts, acting on your behalf, right? It felt like that was like the missing language, right? Just like before smart contracts, how would you express that idea? It needed a term, it needed a word, right? So having smart agent, that's your personal agent acting on the app, sort of forms this basis for decentralized AI. And then it's like, okay, how do we build on top of that and, let somebody with just a phone or a laptop have access to that technology, not be somebody with GPUs and stuff like that. And you pointed out earlier, there's this common misconception that people need a GPU to use a lot of these models where they don't, right? The GPUs come in mostly in the training of the models, especially when it comes to text, right? So they might spend a lot of compute training the model, but once it's trained, it's like 14 gigs, right? A 7 billion parameters model is only 14 gigs. So you can put that on your laptop. You probably put that on your phone, right? I've been carrying this around in Switzerland. I put a personal AI on this thumb drive. And this thumb drive cost me $3, right? So it's not exactly a big barrier at this point to have a full local open source model that at this point are like 95% as good as a proprietary model. So the open source has been catching up really quickly with the closed source stuff, which makes perfect sense, right? There's no company that's bigger than the entire open source community, right? That's always going to be the larger community. And, putting this in their hands, they've been able to really run with it and create these amazing models. So now you can put them on a tiny amount of storage and go use it, right? And so that's sort of the evolution of what's going on. All these things are converging, right? The models are getting smaller, the models are getting better. We can now put them on a personal computer and you can have a personal AI. So from my perspective, like that's the heart of decentralized AI, is putting individuals in charge of the preferences for their AI and not farming it out to some company or government.
David, maybe then the better question would have been, what do we need closed source AI for then? Like if your prediction plays out and in the coming months, open source AI, that model is more powerful than what would be a closed source version, created by someone like OpenAI. Like, what are they doing? Like, what's the purpose of all of this? And I guess how do they sell that to folks? Like, I can easily answer the question as like they're creating something of value that they're looking to extract as much value out of as possible and make as much money as possible, under the hood of like a Microsoft. But like how will they package that and sell that? Like when we could just use something that's open source that's going to be superior.
So first of all, that was the big switch. OpenAI used to be open source, right? They had a foundation. It was supposed to be this open framework. That's how they attracted their initial community. And then they took $30 billion from Microsoft, right? And all of a sudden it was proprietary and it wasn't open source, and they were any other company. And so a lot of people in AI kind of felt betrayed because they had worked on OpenAI when it was open source, right? And by the time it got closed, it's like, hey, this isn't what we signed up for. But they are not stupid. Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, they know there's no moat here on the technical basis. And so they're the ones that lobbied for these regulations in the executive order. They're the ones that hired the lobbyists. They're the ones that organized, that Senate, committee that interviewed all the top AI, companies and put down this executive order, right? They asked for this because the effect is going to push out all the small AI companies, right? Everybody that's not going to get the blessing from Homeland Security or achieve the license that you'll now need for the models or be able to go through and have an expensive safety committee. Like they're literally asking you to prove something impossible, which is the negative. Prove to me this model won't do something bad. Like they're non-deterministic models. You can't do that from a technical perspective. So it's really just going to be the government sprinkling holy water on like the top 5 or 6 players. If you're not in the $100 billion club, you're not getting through this process. Just like with BitLicense, if you didn't have $30 million in bank charter, you were not offering crypto services in, right? It's the same thing. It's just regulatory capture. So yeah, they don't have a moat. They realize that open source is going to displace a lot of this, they're terrified, right? Google doesn't want to lose their market share. Like, why should I go and use Google for my searching when I can just ask the AI and it can give me better information, right? So it's really sort of transformative. And, people see these changes coming. It's like, no, I don't want to live in a world where everything is run by Google and Microsoft. I'd like to opt out and use my open source. So, that's kind of what's really driving this. And, that's what I really liked about this Morpheus proposal was, okay, if we're going to build this entire stack, decentralized, what do you need? You need decentralized compute, right? You need to reward the open source coders. You have to reward people building front ends, community builders. And you have to reward people providing capital, right? And liquidity for all these public blockchains. And so, to have that whole approach in one nutshell and be able to build it with no company, with no token sale, just fair launch it. I haven't seen something since like Ethereum that really sort of checked all those boxes, because these people forget, yeah, they did a token sale. Yeah, they rewarded miners. But people forget they rewarded coders. They airdropped ETH to every single person who contributed code before the Genesis block. And that's why they have so many developers. It's because they rewarded developers more broadly and more fairly than any other project, like bar none, right? So I really like to see that approach again here now with decentralized AI, and Morpheus is to sort of adopt those fundamental principles that it feels like some projects have been lost.
I think this starts to lead then into like, how will Morpheus draw upon the incentive structures that we know so well from Ethereum and Bitcoin and other crypto asset networks. So David, maybe we can then shift gears into like, what is Morpheus? Can you tell us, like, based on all of the challenges and opportunities we have to create decentralized open source AI, how does Morpheus fit into this mission?
So Morpheus is a platform, right, for smart agents. It's not building a particular application. It's just giving the tools to developers who want to deploy agents and dApps and smart contracts in this AI context, right? So it's giving them the compute they need, right? The authors put 24% of the rewards to compute providers, right? And they set out 24% of the emissions for the open source code contributors. They said 24% for people building the front ends and 24% for people providing capital. And I really like the way they did the capital. They used staked ETH, and it all the way contributes to yield, not the principal, right? So if you're going to hold ETH anyway, I might as well point it at an open source project that I'm passionate about, and I want to see bootstrapped into existence, right? And so with that sort of combination of incentives, like, okay, proving the capital is fairly easy, right? Did a person put stake ETH in the contract? Did it stay in there long enough, 24 hours for the rebase and yield to be contributed to the protocol, right? And, the code is very simple. Like, who contributed to the GitHub? Did it get merged in by, the person managing that repo? Right? It's sort of a natural check on the code. And then everything else is all on chain, right? They proposed, okay, if you release an agent and it's popular, you can see, right, the compute it paid for, you can see how many people used it, right? And that's a great way of sort of rewarding people, almost like a reimagining of the App Store, right? Where you could just release an app and, Apple rewarded you based on how popular it was, except for without taking, 30% of what Apple charges developers, right? And this is almost like an open source version of that, right? And the community builders is the same thing. Like, you build a front end or an app and it ends up being popular, you should see all of that on chain. So by making it all on chain, you sort of avoid a lot of the attack vectors where, like, people could fake volumes or stuff like that, because the cost of doing it on chain is higher, the reward, if you were just faking usage, than the reward you're getting. So it's sort of a really unique combination I haven't seen in a long time, and really embraces this fair launch philosophy, right? So there is no token sale, there's no pre-mine. It's like, okay, everybody's going to start earning at the same time, and you can show up with stake ETH, you can write some code, you can build a website in the front end, you can provide compute. Like, it doesn't matter what you got. If you got hardware, you can use your hardware. If you got capital, you can use your capital. If you have coding skills, you can use your coding skills. So, I liked that sort of very egalitarian balance between like labor and capital, people putting in different types of.
So once this is fully live, let's talk about like almost like the elevator pitch for users out there. So, and this might also be a good place for us to talk through some of the different roles you just alluded to. As far as I know, there are community builders, compute providers, code providers, and capital providers. So I don't know if you want to walk through each of those one by one, or if we just start at a super high level and like, if we ran a 60-second ad in the future for Morpheus, like what's like a really typical DeFi use case that someone might benefit from that's using what's being built by Morpheus?
So there's sort of a huge wave of agents. You may have seen OpenAI just released their GPT store, which is really just an agent store. People fine-tune a model or an agent that does one specific thing for people, like makes the greatest, race bar photos ever, makes the greatest cat photos ever, whatever that is, right? They've created some special code to optimize for something, right? So Morpheus is a platform where you could release that type of application, right? And you don't have to set up any of the infrastructure yourself, right? So because the compute providers are offering the inference, right, or the GPUs, but you don't need to buy a bunch of GPUs, and you don't need to pay open source AI 10x of what they should be charging on their API, right? That's the other thing to point out. If you look at distributed compute markets right now, like a Kosh, right? They've been an early community member in Morpheus, and like their community is awesome. They've built like a Morpheus template already and the whole thing, right? So, if you use them, it's a fraction of the cost to do your AI tasks than if you use a proprietary solution, right? And as the models catch up and are sort of on parity with all the proprietary stuff, like why wouldn't you use an open source model that costs 10 times less, right? So that's sort of the simple benefit that you would put out there is like for developers, like why are you paying OpenAI all of your money when you could use the same or better model over here for a fraction of the cost? So that's sort of the first aspect. The second aspect is, with all the permissioning they're going to do of models and AI, there's a lot you just can't do in a Web 2 context. Like, how are you going to do payments? Like, they're not going to give you a bank account for your AI. Like, that's not going to happen. Right? It doesn't fit into the legacy financial system at all, right? So if you want to interact with smart contracts or tokens or, DeFi, I'm not going to be able to do that in any conceivable future the next 5 years on OpenAI. But if I opened up my Morpheus client and I said, hey, I want to stake some ETH. Like, I'm not technical. I don't know how to do that. Help me stake my ETH. Cool. It understands the intent. It can match it to the smart contract, let's say Lido, that it knows has the most transactions and the most volume, right? And say, okay, send it all out. How many ETH do you want to stake? Confirm on your MetaMask, and you're done, right? That's one question and one pushing a button to approve. Like, that's where we have to get as an industry, as an ecosystem, when it comes to usability, right? I think back to like 1998, like that Google moment where the internet went from like navigating directories to you just had this magic box, and you asked the magic box what you wanted, like, oh, I want a sports website, and it curated the entire internet and just gave you the results, right? That's how the internet got to billions of users, was that ease of use, right? I think that's where we're at crypto right now. There's a couple 100 million users, kind of janky, you don't quite know how to navigate it, but AI and chat interfaces are going to give us this usability where you can just tell the machine what you want to do. It understands what you're trying to achieve, and you can approve it at the end of the day, right? You clicked on that Google link here, now you're just smashing a button on MetaMask, right? So that's, I think, the big payoff for Web3 and crypto is AI, decentralized AI is going to give us that level of interface where we can start reaching that first 1-2 billion users in the next few years. So I think that's one of the big things that is driving me is like, I didn't just sign up so we could help out the 1% and balance their portfolio. Like, I'm here for the revolution. I'm here for banking billions of unbanked people. How do we get there? We've got to make the interfaces easier, right? We have the rails, we have the tech to do this, but we've been missing that interface piece. And I'm convinced that this is that interface that will get us there.
Let's say that I have a DeFi AI agent, thanks to Morpheus, and I want to stake some ETH. Can you kind of like dumb down under the hood, like, how does this thing know to go use like Rocket Pool or Lido versus some newly deployed smart contract that, you know, could be a scam? Like, I remember you talking about this a bit on another podcast. And yeah, if you can kind of like dumb that down for us, I think it'll really bring to light like just how powerful this is for crypto adoption.
Sure. So I wrote an algorithm last year called Smart Contract Write. And this was sort of inspired by, what made Google was PageRank, right? They counted the number of links on the internet between the sites. And so you could ignore the keywords and all the other noise and just look at how people were actually using the internet, like what was actually popular, as a website. And so if I draw that analogy to Web3, transactions are that lowest common denominator. It's not links, it's transactions, right? You can very clearly see what the most popular dApps and smart contracts are if you just look at the transaction volume, right? Like, there's been hundreds of millions of, stablecoin transactions for USDC, USDT, and others, right? Versus the thing, like you said, that got released yesterday and it might be a scam, right? So that's the first part of the algorithm. The second part is, what infrastructure is it built on, right? So you can see and there's a smart contract rank.org website. So you can see this all for yourself. But like, the second thing is, what infrastructure it's built on. If it's on Ethereum, times 10, right? If it's on some private permission blockchains, like times 0, right? That goes very heavily into the weighting. And then finally, there's the concept of a DeFi score, where it's like, is it custodial or is it non-custodial? Like, lot more weight to the non-custodial version versus the custodial version. So if you have something that's very popular in transactions, and is built on good infrastructure like Ethereum, and is non-custodial, that ranks really high in smart contract rank, the algorithm. So then basically some of the open source developers took that algorithm that I wrote, applied it to all the smart contracts, got the actual numbers, like, okay, here's the rank for Lido and Compound, and put them in the different categories, like, this is a decentralized exchange, this is a staking protocol, and then creating what's called an embedding and put that into the large language model. So you're taking that database of knowledge, of wisdom, right, and giving it to the large language model. Because the models, the foundational ones, they're good for like general information, but they're not subject matter experts, right? So they can understand what you're asking, but they might not know the details of all the smart contracts. So by basically embedding that information, this is one of the first smart agents, one of the developers is building for Morpheus, is there's a Web3 smart contract smart agent, right? It's taught like all this wisdom. And so when somebody asks the question, hey, I want to stake some ETH, it goes, okay, highest score, maybe gives them a couple options, but, here's Lido, here's a couple of the top options, which one do you want to use? How much do you want to stake? And then as a connection into the ABI, right? Into the way to, call that smart contract, set up the transaction, and then you just push the button on MetaMask, right? Because you're approving with your private key. Like, that's an important distinction here. You're not giving your private key to the AI. That would be a bad idea, right? For a lot of reasons, right? It creates a lot of attack surface, right? For somebody that malicious code into a large language model. So it's much better that you've got that final approval, but that's not that hard these days. As long as the transaction's already been created, it kind of walked you through that process. You didn't need any technical knowledge to just express that intent and then approve that transaction. And you're for benefiting from the wisdom of this specialized smart agent that somebody built, right, on your behalf. And they're benefiting because you use their smart agent. Morpheus network sees that usage, rewards you with more tokens, right? So there was no friction involved in that process. And I think that's the exciting payoff for us. It was like, how do we get a lot of people to use these tools that are way beyond sort of what the mainstream realizes they are, but hasn't gotten easy enough for like the average person to access.
David, I want to touch more on that ease of use point. When these kind of AI agents first came on my radar, a friend of mine and me started playing around with them, and it was fairly like technical at that stage. Like we were in like some sort of command line looking thing and asking it to do things and do tasks and things like that. So what I would love to hear, like, I think this user flow is starting to become more clear for me for like what Morpheus can do. But as far as that like UI context window that we'll be interfacing with, like something that we're seeing in DeFi is these front ends are still an attack vector. So what are you guys kind of cooking up on the decentralized front ends to like that's still user friendly to allow a user to kind of interface with their AI agents?
Well, that's why I was really glad to see, the anonymous authors of the paper included 24% of the emissions for front end builders, well, for what they called community builders, right? Because I agree, like most of crypto is very back end focused, right? And it's just for those that have the power of the command line, right? And so if you look at Morpheus and you go to mor.org right now and you click download, for Linux and Mac, it's drag and drop. Like there's actually a package installer. You never touch the terminal. You dragged and dropped it in the application, and then up pops a GUI, right? Here's your graphical user interface, and you can just type, you can just use it, right? And that's a cool milestone because I hadn't seen any other, project, even if it was open source, that I could just use out of the box, right? I needed Docker, or I needed a terminal, or I needed to install 5 different things. So already, the current version of Morpheus is 0.0.5, and the whole package is together. All the open source pieces that it uses are all in one application. You used to have to download something separately, now they're consolidated all together. So I agree. I think the open source community having incentives for front end is like key for actually accessing the end user. Otherwise, if you don't incentivize it on chain, somebody's going to make a company, somebody's going to centralize that part of the stack, and now you're back to trusting some central entity for the last piece, right? And so I don't think we should be giving up that part of the stack anymore. Like, you probably couldn't have done this 3 or 5 years ago, but you can do it now, right? You can do a good enough job of gauging the on-chain activity to fairly reward front ends and user interfaces and people doing those pieces. And so, yeah, we need a lot more of that. We need more designers, but guess what? People follow incentives. And if they have to create a company to get those incentives, that's what they'll do, right? So by putting those incentives on chain, I think that's a much more approach.
That's actually exactly where I want to go next is the incentive mechanism. But like, first, just to comment on what you said, like, I'm so happy that there's like a push on the front end side, because if you truly want adoption, like, you're not going to get the average person playing around with this tech if they had to do what I did in the earlier days. And I say earlier days, it was probably 8 months ago or something that I started playing around with some of this stuff. But yeah, that is like the key to actually getting users. Like, you have to make the front end usable and easy to use. And to your point about incentives, I want to talk more about the MOR token, because I mean, some people that we talk to, they don't want to talk about the token as much. It's like maybe not as central to everything happening. And, you always see the kind of the meme in Web3 about like, well, why does that need a token? In looking at Morpheus, it's reminiscent of Bitcoin, to be honest. The MOR token seems central to making all this work. So maybe you can kind of articulate how it coordinates work throughout the system, and then just some of the other utility functions that people should know about the MOR token.
No, I agree with that characterization, right? It really reminded me of like proof of work. Like, what are the people doing dividing compute? They're doing proof of work, right? And instead of SHA-256, right, they're offering, their GPU for inferencing a model or rendering, a stable diffusion or something like that to make an image, right? So I agree. That's the key, is if you can extend proof of work beyond building just hash competition and put it into like a real world utility, that's huge. Erik Voorhees wrote a good paper recently, which he called the Yellowstone compute model. And this was sort of like an improvement to some of the original proposals for Morpheus, and really built really a cool decentralized system for people offering compute. There's a decentralized router that then matches that to the people that need that compute, right? And having a protocol handle all of that. So it's automated, right? You don't have to go in and click a provider. You just, you're just using the software. It automatically routes to somebody doing it. And you don't even need a crypto transaction. The router records the usage and then just batches all the activity, once an hour or whatever, to a blockchain transaction, writes to the contract, these compute providers with these public addresses, did this much compute, right? And then they just claim their reward from the protocol instead of claiming it in doing a fee every time. You have to have a transaction every time there's an interaction, right? That's how we scale these systems, is you have to be able to sort of leverage two-layer systems, second-layer systems to really access this. So I thought that was a brilliant approach. The community really liked that, so that's been sort of updated in the white paper. But yeah, it does really remind me of that Bitcoin aesthetic, because, yeah, sure, you can download the local version of Morpheus and you don't need a token. Like, as long as you can run it on your own hardware, like, it's all open source. Not like knock yourself up, right? But what we've seen is most people don't want it on their own hardware, right? There are like 10 or 20,000 full nodes for Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? It's like hobbyists like me that just want to run a full node. But most people don't want to deal with the hassle, right? So you have to have some way to run light clients, right? That's the answer. If you want to network, you have to incentivize people to provide the resources for the network, right? Otherwise, it's always going to be a company, because they're writing a check to keep the server online, right? Whereas if you hand the software a token, it can pay for its own hardware. Like, people don't understand the innovation of Satoshi. Like, that was the brilliant stroke, is there was no company, and the software for the first time could pay for its own hardware, that it could just continually run, right? And it was persistent, right? It didn't depend on any privileged actor in the system. So I think that's definitely the key, right? That's what I argued in my decentralized applications paper in 2013. Like, guys, that's the key. And that was controversial at the time. Like, a lot of Bitcoin maxis told me there could only be one coin, and, anything else that isn't Bitcoin is a scam. And I was like, guys, that's not what I see in technology, right? Network effects specialize, and that's okay. Right? Bitcoin is not going to be Ethereum. Ethereum is not going to be Filecoin. They're doing different things. And you have to have some way to reward people for providing those different types of resources. And so, yeah, I think the token is critical. But, it's refreshing that there is no sale, right? But there is no team, that they're doing this fair launch kind of approach. They're like, just anybody can participate. Here's the tokenomics. It's starting, this is day one. That's maybe one of the updates from the last interview was, the community has proposed February 8th as that day to move from, it's been on testnet for a while, on to Ethereum and Arbitrum for mainnet, right? And that's kind of a cool date. Just sort of worked out that way. But I did notice that's the 28th anniversary of a Declaration of Independence for Cyberspace. Was written by John Perry Barlow, right, one of the founders of the EFF, right, saying, we're going to go build our own thing, right, that isn't connected to the state and is, independent in cyberspace. So that's kind of a fun coincidence. But, the Morpheus ecosystem seems to have a few of those. I noticed September 2nd is the birthday of Keanu Reeves. So I like what the authors did. And Erik was asking me, he's like, I wonder how long they wait to publish that paper to get it to coincide. But, that's, you got to call out like the ethics and the values of the community. And so it may or may not be February 8th, right? It's all still in testnet. There's no magic dates. It depends on like when it's ready, but it looks like that's the proposed date to go off the fair launch.
Anybody that hasn't read that, it's a very brief work that you just cited with John Perry Barlow, I believe. We'll put it in the show notes. I actually saw it in the Morpheus Discord and read through it for my first time just like yesterday, I think. So it's a pretty moving piece. So just definitely take a look at it.
That was the early days. That was 1996, sort of the heart of the cypherpunk kind of movement that was going against, like these type of bans where they were trying to prevent encryption and stuff like that. Eventually, Bitcoin kind of came out of that whole cypherpunk movement. So yeah, it's a cool date to have a fair one.
David, I've got two quick follow-ups here. One, you've mentioned Erik a number of times, and we all love Erik. Erik is, I think, like an embodiment of like the mission of everything behind crypto, like the true cypherpunk mission behind crypto. And so anyways, anytime Erik is involved in a project, we take notice of that. Can you clarify at all? Like, is he a core contributor? You mentioned earlier, maybe the appropriate title is open source contributor. Is he working on this project full time? Like, yeah, what's Erik's role in Morpheus?
I can't speak for him, but, just based on his actions, he built MOR.org. Sort of, he's talked about a couple of conferences now. He wants a permissionless ChatGPT, right? He's sick of sort of the censorship, and really wants a fully decentralized, open source ChatGPT. And so I think that's what he's expressed as his vision for MOR.org, which is one of many of the community websites, but that's, he's done a beautiful job of building the interface, and, obviously has so much experience with building permissionless platforms like he did with Shapeshift, right? That he's kind of bringing that expertise. But yeah, he's also actively contributed to the GitHub. Like I mentioned, his paper, the Yellowstone compute model was an awesome contribution. That was just a few weeks ago to the community, and he's super active in the Discord and stuff like that. There's really no concept of core in the Morpheus community. Like, I didn't even know most of the developers. Half of them are anonymous. Some people are working on smart contracts. Some people are building like the full node install. Other people are working on the agents, which is really cool, right? I counted it up the other day. I believe there's been 123 people that have already contributed to the GitHub or the papers or building the front ends. Like, and it's just been a few months, like, since this idea was even proposed, to see like that many people come together. People like just spontaneously sponsored auditors to look at the smart contract. Like, I've never seen that from a community, but like, there is no team, there is no company. It's whatever we make it, right? And so I guess, MR.org would be a good example of something that's in that community builder bucket when it comes to the rewards. Yeah, look, earning rewards for, driving adoption, calling for the inference, calling for the compute from the compute providers, and doing all of that on chain with the Morpheus token, is sort of, so I would, I think it's fair to say he's an open source contributor and a member of the community. And we don't really do titles because, in my experience, most titles are people seeking power over other people. Like, if you just contribute to something, people know you by a reputation, right? Eric doesn't need a title. Like, I don't need a title. Like, there's tons of people working on this. And so I don't want to diminish other people's contributions. Like, everybody's doing their own thing, but we've started to give this a name in the community, which is atomic governance. Right? One of the things I really liked about the Morpheus paper was it basically left everything up to the free market. People can choose their own model. They can choose their own compute. They can choose which smart agents they want to use. Like, if you don't like something, you don't have to, lobby a DAO for a change or hold a vote. You literally just drag and drop, like, okay, I'm doing this now. You don't need anybody's permission, right? And I love that idea of sort of atomic governance. And so, like, what gets in the GitHub, what's actually valuable, and what the GitHub repo guy is willing to merge, right? And, if somebody comes along and, I did these 10 lines of code and it took me 10,000 hours. Like, yeah, that's not going to get merged, right? They're not going to, delete your own rewards. So there's sort of like a free market for the code, for the compute, and every aspect of the project. And I like that, right? I think the best governance is the least governance. You could just show up, have a property right in that private key, and just take action. And that's what's beautiful about Web3 systems, is you don't have to coordinate or convince a bunch of other people. You can just use it in the way that works for you.
When is the bootstrapping event and fair launch slated to take place? And Is there anything you can share about how it will work?
Sure. So there's a proposed candidate for the smart contracts, right? They've been in the Johnston for a while. So it looks like February 8th will be that date, and then move to Ethereum and to Arbitrum for the minting and AMM. That might change, but that's sort of what it looks like right now is February 8th. And that's in the paper what's described as the start of the bootstrapping. That's what's described in the paper as, well, bootstrapping period, right? And why have a 90 days? This is sort of one of the things that Erik pointed out is like, hey guys, if it starts trading day one, there are almost no units in circulation. And for those that weren't there in 2016, you're going to have a Zcash problem. I don't know if you guys remember that launch, but it was a hot project, man, zero knowledge proofs. It's finally here. And there were only a couple of tokens that first day. People bid up the price of Zcash like $300,000, right? A Zcash, because they just wanted the novelty of like wanting the first ever Zcash. But the problem is it creates this perception that if you go on CoinGecko, CoinMarketCap today, it shows the project as down 99% since the launch. Even though it was just like that first week or two where it was like getting the first couple of units into existence and it was doing price discovery. I think the charts there start like $3,000. They didn't even capture the more absurd, sort of like first minutes of the launch, but it records $3,000 as the launch, as the initial price. And so as a new user, if you showed up and you just look at the price chart, you're like, oh, this is a failed project. It must have gone away. Even though they've been very successful, right, in usage, and it has a decent market cap, and it's been like a pioneer in zero knowledge proofs, like people will discount that if they see that chart, right? And so it's like, okay, well, if you just let it run for 90 days, right, it's all live, everybody's contributing staked ETH, everybody's doing the things, but you can't send your claim tokens LB91, then you'd have 1.2 million units in existence. And you avoid the Zcash problem where like it's 5 tokens and it's just going to be some crazy price. Day one, you can start with a real price discovery, right, where it can build organically based on real usage and people using it over time instead of some crazy, inflated price the first few days. And so, I really like that approach. I think that was a smart addition to have a bootstrapping period. And honestly, it kind of gives you time for like, okay, there've been audits done, but then you get to do more audits all on chain when it's really happening. And you can kind of do like a fair launch, but a soft launch in the sense that, well, if you got to fix something, it's not sendable till day 91 anyway. You have an additional period of time for the community to keep testing and making sure it's going to be solid. So yeah, I think that bootstrapping period is a pretty smart approach.
David, when you're thinking about Morpheus, what types of innovations do you think will be built or need to be built, or maybe that you're even just excited about seeing built kind of on top of or with Morpheus? Anything like that comes to mind?
The biggest things I want to see are, all the great crypto projects that have been built, which I think are underutilized today, right? Or like we talked about the stake ETH, for example, but there's 50 things like that. Like, Bitcoin is super popular, but people don't want to dash them or send them, right? And if it can push the dexes and the rails into the background, and you can just say, oh, I want to send $100 to Bob. And it's like, great, here's USDC, push this button, confirm this is the address for the Bob you want to send it to, and you're good. Like you've removed 99% of the friction from the system. And so I think that's sort of really critical, is making it as easy as possible. So it's all that kind of stuff. But it was interesting when I did the survey of all the smart contracts through the smart contract rag to really see what people actually use. Number one thing people did, 2 billion transactions, is send ETH. Like not even a contract, just send ETH, right? 800 million transactions, send Bitcoin. 200 million transactions, send USDT or USDC, right? So that's a lot of usage. People are just sending money permissionlessly to others all over the world. And then you get into like, okay, there have been 10 or 20 million transactions staking ETH or doing DeFi or sort of these more advanced use cases. But what I think it can do is sort of rise up a lot of those less used, more complex things that everybody would love yield on their ETH. They just don't think it's for them because they don't know how the heck to access the smart contract, or even what question to ask, or even the name of the smart contract. That's the critical part here, is now with a large language model, it can detect the intent, right? It understands what you're trying to achieve, puts it in one of those categories, and can go and do it, right? So that's what I want to see, is a lot of those, amazing things that have been built in crypto that today have only been used by a few million people. All of a sudden, they can be accessible to billions of people.
Guys, this is a great place for us to start to wrap up. So I want to remind our listeners that they should first learn more about Morpheus by going to mor.org. They can follow Morpheus AIs on Twitter. That's like the mothership account. I don't know who runs it, but someone clearly is running it with the best interest of Morpheus. And then you should, of course, follow David on Twitter at DJohnstonEC. And then, David, just thanks so much for your time. Thanks for being so generous in talking us through, I think, some really like bleeding edge, difficult to like understand topics. I'm hoping for folks that have like wondered why they should be worried about or thinking about or concerned with decentralized AI. This is a great sort of like entry point for them. For those, though, that want to get more involved, would love to just give you the final word on like, how can you start to contribute to Morpheus? Also, something top of mind for me and Nomadic is like running a Morpheus node. Like, any recommendations there for getting started?
No, this has been an awesome conversation. We'll appreciate your guys' perspectives and depth of knowledge on this subject. And, I would say the cool thing is this is a community project. And so just jump in, right? Check out the white paper. I think there's a copy of it on NOIR.org. Check out the Discord. There's a ton of people in there kind of actively talking about like, okay, cool. How do I, provide my GPU to the network? How do I, add to the code and get rewarded for that? How do I do these different things? So Discord's where a lot of the activity seems to be. And yeah, this is going to be something really important for people to be knowledgeable about. Like you said, you can download a local copy of Morpheus today and literally just drag and drop it, install the app, and start playing with it. And that local version will sort of morph over time into the quote unquote like node, right? The people that want to offer compute or participate in the network. So, just doing that is like the single biggest thing. I remember when I first downloaded the full Bitcoin node in 2012, and I'm glad I did, right? Like, I was using docs and stuff like that, but I've been told like, oh, you got to put it on your own hardware. And thank God I did, right? So none of the exchanges I used in 2012 still exist, right? So you're probably going to see a lot of turnover in AI tools because of all these regulations that are coming in. So if you want something that can be consistent, they can be able to use for a long time, have a personal AI that's on your side, like, check this out, download it, play with it. It's super, early, but give feedback, join the community, and participate. I think is hugely beneficial. Got to really want to understand this. But yeah, it's been so cool to see AI and the crypto community kind of come together and build this. I'd also say you're going to be at ETH Denver. Some of the community members have sponsored a Decentralized AI Day on the 28th. I think the link is up on the Discord and other places, but that's going to be amazing because it's like bringing together all the big protocols like Akash and others that are offering decentralized compute, and all the AI groups that are building the models and getting them all in one place. So, if you're going to be there, love to have you. Check it out.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you're a talented founder or developer, please consider reaching out to our team at fourthrevolution.capital. And for future episodes of the Edge podcast, please check out our link tree at edge_pod.